Imagine you are trapped in a strange room where bizarre things are happening and there is no way out. Something like this happens in today's story. The story begins with a large white room where a Japanese person is lying. Suddenly, when he opens his eyes, he gets scared seeing himself in this huge, empty room. After a while, he starts looking around. When he goes near a wall, he notices something strange sticking out of it. After checking it, he presses the end of this odd thing, and suddenly, thousands of baby angels start coming out from the walls. But soon, they all go back inside the walls, leaving only a small part of their bodies sticking out. The man realized that the strange-looking thing was actually body part of these babies. A voice told him that this phase of life is called learning. After understanding what's going on, he shouted loudly, hoping someone nearby would help him. But when there was no response, he began pressing different buttons one by one. Each button made something new fall into the room. Sometimes a toothbrush, sometimes a big bouquet. He figured out that each button made a specific thing come out. To test his theory, he kept pressing the same button, causing a pile of chopsticks to appear. But when he pressed the next button, a shopping cart shot out quickly and hit his foot, making him scream in pain. Pressing the next button made him transform into a child's backside. He transformed into someone who got hit in the face. After that, he started pressing different buttons, making all kinds of things appear. While he was playing with a ball, he pressed a button and a delicious Japanese dish called sushi came out. He was happy because he was really hungry. He thought it would be perfect if soy sauce came with the sushi. But no matter how many times he pressed the button, only sushi kept coming out. He quietly ate what he got. After finishing, he pressed the button again to order more, and this time, a bottle of soy sauce appeared in front of him. Annoyed, he threw the bottle away, feeling angry that it didn't come when he needed it. The next button he pressed gave him a pair of 3D glasses. He saw a baby angel pointing towards his button, and he was very happy because he thought he had solved the mystery of the room. But when he pressed the button, a countdown started, and at the end of it, a huge backside appeared from the wall and hit him in the face. After pressing a few more buttons, he found a book that seemed interesting. He spent hours reading its contents, but when he pressed a button to move to the 6th chapter, the 7th book came out instead. Frustrated, he pressed another button, but this time, the 8th and 9th books came out. In his search for 5th books, he pressed another button and suddenly saw a door behind him. He was excited because he thought he could finally escape. But in his excitement, he forgot which button was the right one and started pressing random ones. When he pressed the button, an African man ran from one wall to another and water started falling on his head from the second wall. But finally, on the 3rd try, the door opened. As he left the button and started heading toward the door, it closed. After trying for a while, he realized that the door would only stay open as long as the button was pressed. Seeing this, he stood in a running position on the button, hoping to reach the door quickly. But before he could get there, the door closed. He tried many different ways, but nothing worked. He even sat on a shopping cart to reach the door faster, but it was useless. Then, he used his brain and put a bouquet on the button, but it wasn't heavy enough to keep the button pressed. He had to fill the bouquet. He tried adding water by pressing the water button, but the water only fell on his body, not anywhere else. Finally, he had an idea and filled the bouquet with sushi. After a lot of struggle, he managed to carry it there. He managed to get the bouquet to the button, but by mistake, he placed it on the wrong button. This caused a man with a reed to run toward him, and when they collided, the bouquet broke. Frustrated and angry, he yelled. He tried pressing more small buttons, but every time, the door closed just before he could reach it. Then, by accident, he pressed a button and a rope came down. He thought he could use the rope to swing to the door quickly, and it worked. But when he tried to open the door behind the wall, he found out he needed a key. Before he could open the door, the wall closed and he was back in the room. In anger, he kicked the wall, and suddenly a key floated in the air. But just like the door, the key disappeared after a while if he stopped pressing the button. Now, he had to figure out a way to quickly grab the key and reach the door. However, when he pressed the button for the key again, a dog came out instead, and it was hungry. He got confused again because everything was going wrong. After pressing many buttons, he finally found the right one and placed a piece of sushi on it. After failing 12 times, he managed to grab the key and reach the door. But the trouble wasn't over yet. There was a numbered lock on the top of the door. He quickly went back to the room, but as he tried to exit, the wall slammed into him again. Frustrated, he yelled, "The cage is on the other side." When he pressed another button, the African man appeared once more. This time, he noticed that the man had a number 3 written on him, which meant the lock would open with the number 2. Since the walls kept closing, he quickly pressed the button 3 times and unlocked the door. The door was a bit stuck, so he had to put in extra effort to open it. Just then, the wall wall fell back down. There was not enough space to open the door fully, and he became discouraged, sitting down and crying. He remembered the time inside the room, realizing how much he had while he was there. He couldn't leave, but he had so much in the room. He hadn't valued it in time. Suddenly, he felt a gust of wind from his left. He opened a fake wall and ran outside. The whole place looked exactly the same, and it felt like he was running in circles. After running for a while, he reached another room where the light was dimmer. As soon as he entered, the door slammed shut. A voice told him that this phase of life is called practice. The man started pressing different buttons. One button made fire shoot out from the mouth of a single man singing, while another button caused a Russian magician's magic to fail. When he pressed the third button, a man in China started training his dogs. The man noticed that, like the previous room, this one didn't have a ceiling. Instead, light was coming from above and drops of water were falling. This time, he had a new idea. Instead of pressing the buttons, he grabbed them and began to climb. He succeeded, and with each button he pressed, amazing things began to happen in different corners. Flowers bloomed, elephants slipped, and as he climbed higher, toast started cooking and humans reached the moon. By the time he reached the top, his beard and hair had grown long. He no longer needed to hold the walls. Like the other rangers, he began to fly in the air. A voice told him that he had attained godlike status and that the world would now follow his lead. As he continued, white wings surrounded him, guiding him to the last room. On the wall of that room was a map of the earth, and the final button was there, waiting for him to press. He stepped forward, and as he pressed it, the screen turned black. The voice asked, "If you could be God for one day and change anything on earth, what would you do with that power?" He invited everyone to share their thoughts in the comments.